What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of We Burn Blue, Season 3. We're in person, we're in Hong Kong. We're recording right before the training session. Cheers, man.
Yeah, cheers
Let's
to
do
our
this.
second face-to-face.
Yeah, second.
But full disclosure, we are not a sponsored podcast yet.
So-
we're also having commercial issues.
So, yeah.
Cheers. And it's good to have you in Hong Kong.
Yeah, man.
So how's it been so far?
It's been good, obviously. We've been chilling a lot and looking forward to this game, man.
Yeah, and we do have a training session that we're seeing later. So that should be good.
Yeah.
Have you ever actually seen a training session before live?
Nope.
I've only seen warm-ups before games.
I've not seen a training session. I've not seen the players play ever. I mean, I've not seen Chelsea
Actually,
play.
you
It's
haven't
my
seen,
first time.
Yeah, okay. This is going to be your first live game.
First live game, yeah.
Oh, shit.
So
Okay.
it's fun.
Cheers, man. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. But I think we had a little bit more of a slightly more serious topic we wanted to discuss.
Yeah,
right?
we've talked about this since we started doing this podcast.
Because we were always baffled as to how this was all happening.
And it's still happening and baffling us. So we said, let's try to demystify it a little bit. But I don't know if we're going to really accomplish much with this.
I hope we do, but a wise person just told us it's our pod, so we can try our best and see how it goes.
Exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, we're jumping into the much referred to finances of the club. What's been happening since the new owners came in? We were recently hit with a 10 million fine again. And what are the implications of these fines? What's been happening on the transfer side of things? Things like what's happening with sponsorships and the stadium and, all of those various issues. So hopefully we can do justice to this. But if we can't, well, I mean, you can choose to follow us or not. We're still doing this. We still love to chat.
Yeah.
And we're still going to keep this up. So, yeah. Where do you want to start?
Well, we should start by disclosing, maybe we shouldn't care so much about how it's run financially. Like we mentioned this in the last pod. It's not our money.
It's not our money, true.
But at the same time, these are private equity owners, right? They're used to running $1 billion pound projects. And I guess we're 5 years in now, right?
Yeah.
4 or 5 years in.
2022. So,
it just raises the question, have they ever been this far back in their projects,
Especially after saying that this club was not commercially well run, right? Iqbali making that stadium on an international stage and then not being able to, live up to it is saying something. Yeah.
So, I mean, we'll come to that later, but they have passed up a lot of opportunities in that regard. And I think we've touched on these points in previous pods. But you mentioned a recent 10 million pound fine.
Yeah.
Along with a suspended 2 transfer window ban.
Correct.
So why did we get fined? And what does it mean to have your ban suspended?
It's the most jokes thing, I think, a suspended ban. It's the same thing that happened with Balogun during the World Cup, obviously. But okay, we got the fine because of... So between 2009 and 2022, apparently for a lot of the transfers that we made, there were a lot of agent payments that were made off the books, sort of on the side, like side payments to agents to get those transfers to come through. This is
accumulating to something like 50+ million pounds.
Something like that. So you're talking Hazard, Eto'o,
key
Willian.
signings.
Yeah, some of the key signings, right?
Yeah.
So what's happened is when the new owners came in, they disclosed this because as part of their due diligence, they uncovered this and they disclosed it to the FA at that point of time.
Yeah.
In 2022 when they were coming in, rather than, shove it under a rug and then hope it doesn't come out. So what's happened is the FA has fined us 10 million pounds for 74 charges. And they've basically reduced that down from initially it was supposed to be, I think, 22 million and they reduced it down to 10 million because we self-reported it.
Yeah.
And this 2-window ban on transfers is suspended till June 2027 if we don't make any more
breaches.
Yeah.
So actually, it highlights the importance of the financials also going forward.
Yeah.
It makes what we're talking about in this pod a little bit more important because it matters now more than ever how well they handle the books.
Yeah.
And we can go through some of the managing or mismanaging that's gone on, but I guess self-reporting kind of indicates that, okay, maybe they're dealing with a lot that they didn't anticipate, right?
Yeah, maybe.
And we don't like to give them too much credit, but I think actually the self-reporting in hindsight is working out, like you said, as long as they are able to then manage things correctly and not breach any further PSR regulations.
Specifically, I think the ruling says that they don't commit any other such offenses. So it means similar.
Okay.
So I don't think that they are anyway doing any agent kickbacks or any sums like that.
Off the books.
Off the books, right?
Or unreported.
Yeah.
Now everything is reported, and I think in terms of agent fees, we're one of the highest paying clubs in the world. I think the figure as of the 2025 books is something like 65 million pounds.
Right. Yeah.
But again, like when we were doing the research for this, that's more of it's part of doing the business the way they've chosen to do it, which is this high volume player trading model.
Yeah.
So, I mean, 65 million pounds is a lot of money.
It is.
But when we're talking about the hundreds of millions and I guess the billions that have gone into this project, to get the players that you want, I guess the trading model does depend on the quality of asset.
And you sometimes need those like
there are a lot of palms to grease along the way.
Exactly.
As exhibited during Abramovich's era.
Exactly.
So overall, like I guess before we go deeper into since the takeover, right? How do you feel about the fine and the suspended ban? Do you think you've walked away like...
I think we'll probably look back at this saying we got lucky considering how Everton and Forest had like points deductions and also got hit with fines. And obviously the big one, City, 116 counts.
Yeah.
There's no ruling
and still
on that
counting,
yet.
Right?
I mean, maybe. Who knows? But if they get hit with some serious sanctions, we may look back and say,
yeah,
we got lucky. I think this is the second such fine we've had for this. We got fined sometime earlier as well,
we
right?
did, but again, I'm not sure if it's related to these 74 or 75 charges where they found that we've breached PSR. Again, these are the self-reported.
That was a UEFA fine, actually. That was UEFA had fined.
It was 3 million or 2 million.
Yeah, UEFA fined us, and then we had a settlement with them.
But that's just because we are not satisfying their criteria and being a healthy, on a healthy financial basis. So their answer to that is to fine more money, to charge the business more money, which I understand. Like, okay, there needs to be some punishment.
But I mean, would you take a points deduction or paying cash?
We would take a paying cash, but I'm trying to understand, like, UEFA clearly just want to also benefit from the cash.
So okay, we have to talk about the ownership, right?
Yeah.
So right off the bat, there's a couple of things in their favor. One is clearly self-reporting it worked.
Yeah.
Another thing is they did say that they set aside funds for these fines.
Okay, things that you find.
Yeah, they were expecting
after the takeover.
Yeah. So they set aside some funds saying, okay, we are expecting to be hit with sanctions.
Well, I mean, 10 million pounds to them is nothing as well.
It's nothing, but I mean,
maybe they were expecting more.
It's about foresight, right? Like if they know that they're willing to spend 30 million on a player, they know that they're willing to spend 30 million on fines, and they've put that aside, so it's not coming out of any running expenses. I think that is a little bit of foresight on their part.
But also, I mean, I'm not trying to discredit them. It's great that hopefully they set aside enough money. Considering how much they spend on players, they should also have set aside a significant amount. But they're so experienced in doing this in other business. A takeover is a takeover in a lot of different ways, right? And this is probably one of the ways. Like, there's probably a protocol that they've set that says, okay, look, upon completion, they also probably have to assess, okay, how clean do they think the books that they've inherited really are? And then they have to kind of budget for a provisional tax or provisional charges or fines that may come up in this business later on, right? So it's experience and foresight, like you mentioned. But I'd still, I mean, you know, it's just football at the end of the
Clutching
day.
straws a little bit maybe as well.
But it's just football at the end of the day. I don't mind that Abramovich did that to get Hazard, you know what I mean? So
yeah, I
morally
suppose so.
maybe not the best, but we'll take the trophies.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I guess. And I mean, that's the same argument a City fan's going to have,
Yeah.
right? And yeah, it's going to be...
It's still pretty tough to win the Premier League.
Yeah, it
like,
is.
objectively.
Yeah,
And I mean, look, they paid us good money for Kovacic. It's not like he's done much for them, right? But, you know, it's not always a hit. Like, we've seen it ourselves, the billions that they've spent, the hundreds of millions that they've put into players. Not all of them have panned out. So you can spend the money, but it doesn't mean you actually get the value that you want in return, that you anticipate.
That's true.
So all of this to say, like, look, if you win the Premier League and in 10 years' time or 15 years' time, you're like free and clear of any PSR from this, you know, winning it now, truly hats off to you because you've done a good job. So it remains to be seen whether Arsenal are like that. But I'll hold my breath.
Why Arsenal?
Because they just won the title.
Oh, that's way that.
But you got to wait and see.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Okay.
I think 7 years, statute of limitations on a lot of things. So let's see in 7 years' time. If it's beyond reproach, then I'll start congratulating all the Arsenal fans.
All right.
Oh, man.
Well, so coming to it then.
Well, I think we should start with the basics, which a lot of the basics which I've even learned today in researching for this pod. But essentially, the takeover happened at around like a £4.25 billion valuation.
Yeah.
And that valuation is split into two different kind of categories. One is 2.5 billion in cash or equity, in which I think Clear Lake owns 60%. Clear Lake represented by Egbali
and Feliciano.
Yeah. And then Todd Bowley and his consortium of investors represents the other 40% of that 2.5 billion pounds that's been put into equity ownership. Then the balance of the 4.25 was a committed spending, right? And actually, I remember reading about this at the time. I didn't even know Abramovich or anybody as an incumbent owner could make that stipulation on assert for that stipulation for future owners to say, oh, okay, you're taking over something that I love. I need to make sure that you're going to invest in it. So that's what he tied them down to. I think that adds up to like 1.75 billion pounds.
Do you think that's why they've spent so erratically?
Well, honestly, in the research for this, it's legally binding, that commitment. So, and I mean, legally binding is great, but it has like, you know, a trade-off to it. So, like you say, is that why they've been super aggressive? Because I imagine there's also a committed time frame.
Yeah,
you can't just say, oh, we'll spend 1.75 billion and invest it in the club, but it takes you 20 years to do it.
Yeah.
You know, that's not part of the agreement. So there's that whole aspect of, well, how are they arranging the funding for that 1.75? And we'll go into that in a bit. It's quite risky what they're doing. But on the flip side, the fans are happy because the owners are coming in and they have to spend. But like I said earlier, you can spend, but just be really bad at it.
Yeah, which, I mean, their track record is... Jury's still out on that, right?
Well, I mean, we'll see who they manage to offload and when they do offload, the values that they get.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, you're more in tune with the market right now. What's the valuation for Disasi going to Crystal Palace, let's say?
I think he's reportedly around 25, if I'm not wrong. I know we finally held out and we got 30 fixed and about 6
That's euro,
for
right?
For Chalobah, which is what we were expecting.
Yeah.
But Disasi and Badiashile, pure profit. Yeah. I'm actually not like I haven't read too much about the valuations for those deals.
Yeah.
Similarly, I mean, since we're on it, Welbeck and Henderson, what do you make of those?
You know, we've been calling for experience and leadership to be added.
Yeah.
But not that kind. That was my reaction, and then I'm realizing, like, okay, we can't be choosers right now, right?
We can't, but also see.
And they're homegrown. This is the other thing that adds to it.
Yeah. So the direct comparison for Henderson in this window would have been Xhaka. And I actually think
I hate that comparison.
in terms of you're talking about experience and leadership.
One guy actually played every game for his nation at the World Cup.
And one guy
the other
went and
guy just
fractured
like
his arm.
fell over
A hoarding, right?
hoarding and then injured himself. So
No, but no, it's. I mean, obviously the World Cup aside, right?
Yeah.
You think about Henderson's pedigree in England and how much he won with Liverpool. He was captaining them through all of that.
Yeah.
You think about Xhaka was at Arsenal, and then they won a couple of FA Cups.
I
and then
agree
he
with
went
what
to,
you're trying to say.
Yeah.
Long story short, that's the profile we wanted filled in the squad. But the issue is, I guess Xhaka probably felt like he could play at the Premier League level a lot more this season and the next season, because I think it was a 2-year deal that they put on the table, compared to maybe what Henderson feels like, and maybe he's more amenable to taking that backseat role. So in that sense, they're fitting a similar profile for us. They're satisfying certain criteria for us. But in terms of playing style and
I'm talking about the intangibles. I'm talking about the intangibles more. I think they fit the same sort of build from
Leadership
an intangibles
and-
perspective.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's Welbeck, who I think is very much in the mold of like, he's very Giroud-esque for me in the way he's able to get goals. He's consistently performing, and he was doing it till last
they're
year.
totally different players.
But I mean, in terms of the value he'll bring to the squad.
Yes, exactly. Like a backup goal scorer.
Yeah.
Touch wood. Again, he does have a injury record that needs to be managed. I think, especially at his age.
Yeah, he's 35, man. He's like.
So again, I guess for him the move makes sense, right? And touch wood, it's not a Colwill situation where we suddenly have to rely on Welbeck. It's the same thing, right? Colwill gets injured last season, and we're suddenly relying on the people who are just meant to be backups. And we saw the defense saw huge results from that in a negative way.
Yeah.
Having said that, we've seen in the first televised preseason game, we still conceded a lot. That's because we played the kids. But you see what I mean, right?
I'm intrigued to see how we set up versus Juventus for what it's worth. I think as we're getting closer, we're going to see more and more of his identity coming into play. And I mean, we did lose to Spurs.
Yeah.
And we did sort of.
I guess that needs acknowledging, but I haven't really caught up with that game yet.
I mean, I know that the second goal we scored was, again, a player you'd expect to do more, a Tosin, just backing off and giving Richarlison the space to shoot. And, that's how we go and concede. So.
And we've seen it all of last season.
Yeah. And considering Spurs were 10 men, and we probably should have taken the game to them, I think we ended up getting forced to, they sat in a low block, and we then had to, they were trying to counter us, and we got the other side of it.
I'll speak on that maybe in our next pod when I've had time to actually watch the game.
Fair.
But I don't mind a little bit of Tosin bashing, So I'm okay with that because he's actually just not a very good defender. But speaking of Spurs, because we should come back to the finance part.
Yes.
As much as we really probably don't want to do it, but I read this today that I think the lack, or let's say, the shortage in match day revenue and this gap that we have in demand for fans wanting to actually attend games at our stadium, and what we're actually able to seat. I think the capacity is around 42,000.
Yeah, 41,300 on a max capacity.
This is like detailed research right here. So
I just read it.
Yeah. So we have way more demand for tickets than we can seat, and that's all opportunity cost. That's all lost revenue. Yeah. Right. You look at what Spurs have, for instance. I mean, forget about comparing yourself to Arsenal and United for a second, right? Because their infrastructure is even bigger. But compared to what Spurs have, we're actually being left short around £50 million just on match day revenue.
Right.
And then, like you mentioned before the pod, there's also, Spurs have a new stadium and it's better equipped to do other sporting events or other musical or other entertainment events as well, which is all revenue that's just not available to Stamford Bridge. And Stamford Bridge would then be competing. You have to think about it that way. How many events are there? why would they go to the Bridge versus a brand new stadium, like new White Hart Lane, or go to the Emirates?
London is West Ham, whatever it's called. Yeah.
So that was shocking for me to read, because I mean, on an annual basis, if you're leaving £50 million on the table, and this would just be for Chelsea, right? I've got like a bit of information here. The loss that they've reported, this would be 2024 to 2025's financial report. The loss that they're showing for Chelsea, like CFC Holdings, is £256 million.
Okay.
So that gap that I've highlighted just in stadium and match attendance alone is a fifth of the problem, straight off the bat. So, I mean, you wanted to touch on the stadium, because of course that's probably one of the hardest things they can solve. But what are your thoughts
with the
on that?
stadium, I think, look, there's obviously the main point is, are they going? I guess the main question is, are they going to redevelop Stamford Bridge or shift location? I think the CPO structure being in place, which is designed to make sure the club always stays at, the Stamford Bridge ground, means that they have to go through that hurdle, and that's not going to be easy. I know, because I'm part of the CPO, I have a share that there are regular.
Big flex, but yeah, go on.
Sorry. But there are a lot of meetings, and every time there's an AGM, this is one of the topics, and they're trying to figure out what's going on there. And I think the CPO maybe would consider letting saying, okay, you can move away from Stamford Bridge, but I mean, I think from what I understand, the Stamford Bridge parcel of land itself is pretty small, right? I mean, you've been there.
Yeah, it's not a vast amount of land that you can do additional developments around it, like add other things that would bring tourists and people into the area, or into the arena, let's say. So it's a tricky one, because aside from the internal issue of the CPO, right? I say issue, it was set up for a good reason.
Yeah.
And I actually still think like it's a valid reason. The monumental cost is redeveloping the site.
Exactly.
Right? But in terms of regulation, that might still be the easier option. As soon as they want to move to other areas of London, it then becomes you're competing with like housing developments or malls or other sort of entertainment infrastructure. And then I imagine at that level, you're talking about who do you know? And again, these guys have taken over a project very recently. I'm not sure what their connections and all are like, and how well they are able to smooth things over with local authorities and networks there. But for instance, there was talk about this Earl's Court move, but that land that they were targeting has basically been signed off to another developer, and in that developer's plans, there's no space.
Stadium,
There's no allocation for a stadium, and the area itself has to approve the development, right? And I think there's a lot of pushback in these districts in London, maybe not wanting a massive stadium where there's going to be a lot of foot traffic, a lot of noise. Chelsea fans don't have the best reputation, in terms of being rowdy and stuff like that. But there's basically just a lot of hurdles that need to be overcome. That's why I say the redevelopment project of the site itself, if they were gung-ho on fulfilling the commitment that they made at the start when they took over, that's seeming like the easier way. And I say easy. It's expensive, it's time consuming. I mean, I don't remember how long Spurs' expansion took, right? But they were at Wembley for at least 2 seasons.
Yeah,
right?
I think it was about 2 seasons, if I'm not wrong.
So
yeah.
I think over there they're in a bit of a pickle, to put it lightly. And we bring this up also just to highlight how we could potentially be falling behind other
For
clubs.
sure. Like I was just gonna say, right? So it's fine if you're behind, say, 1 or 2 years into your, new ownership, but we're into the 4th year. And so far on the stadium, there was a little bit of chatter in the middle, and then they brought in a new chairman or CEO of the holding co to I believe, right? To sort of, who was well connected and was able to take forward the stadium project, but there's been nothing there as well.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the other area that we're still massively lagging behind. I mean, we're going into season 4 without a shirt sponsor.
Yeah.
That's another
easy,
area.
That's easy money being left on the table.
Exactly. Yeah.
So again, I go back to this figure, like 250 million, keep that in your mind for Chelsea's losses alone. But then they also have to publish, or they have to submit the parent structures accounts, and that's around 630 million pound loss. And that's because like all of this fancy footwork that they did about internally selling the hotels and the women's club, once that reaches a consolidated level, they're not actually allowed to put the profit of that on the books. So whilst like Chelsea FC, the holding company, benefits from selling those assets, right? The parent company or the consolidated account doesn't actually have that same benefit. Now, I think the good thing here is I don't think UEFA and PSR are actually assessing the consolidated parent company's accounts, right? But it raises the question, how many more like slick maneuvers do they have? And whatever they've done so far, it seems that they still have a good relationship with UEFA and PSR, and they're negotiating, appealing, and accepting what they get. But they're also getting smarter as a result of what these guys are trying to do. So it's really narrowing the space for maneuverability going forward. And we know with PSR, I think it's for a period of 3 seasons, a club cannot make a loss over 105 million pounds.
Correct.
They've reported a loss of 250 million pounds for Chelsea. So the amount of work that has to be done over the next 2 seasons, let's say, right? I'm thinking like you have to start cashing in on.
But this is also when
players.
I think this loss came without counting the earnings from the CWC as well, right?
I don't think that's included here.
Yeah. Right? And the Conference League.
No, actually, this is net of that.
Okay, but not the Club World Cup, because
I think Club World Cup is coming into the next financial year because, like you said, the financial year ends at June 30th.
Right, yeah.
So, and I think we won it in July.
Yeah, okay.
But 20 million of the... You get the 20 mil for being in it, I think, and then balance 40 or 45 or whatever. The total prize money was 60 or 65 odd. That balance would have gone to the next year's books. 20 million that you get for being in it goes into these. But we're talking about like 250 in one season, right?
Yeah. It's
not
a big
over
amount.
3 seasons. It's a huge amount. So, and we've also highlighted some mismanagement. I think the stadium, maybe we can say, okay, it's not fully in their control. Front of shirt.
That's something that they should be solving.
And from your perspective, or like from what you've read, how much do you think they've passed up on? Because it's basically since they've taken over, right?
If you just go at a very basic 40 million for a club that's... I mean, I know they're holding out for 60, which has been the reason they haven't got anyone. And 60 million for front of shirt, considering the form we've been in, seems like it's a huge ask, right? So even if you say...
But you also know, right? Aside from form, although I guess form, if you asked me this question, form would be a big factor. But you also know what brands and potential front of shirt sponsors would look at when they're assessing
Yeah.
the viability of sponsoring Chelsea at £60 million a year? Do you think, what do you think those criteria are? And then do you think
I think it's visibility. So not being in Europe is a huge one. I think it's also, where you're finishing. Like if you're finishing in the top, you can command a high value, right? Like it's sure we've not been first every season under Abramovich, but we were consistently winning trophies. And we were always, except for a couple of seasons, always in the top 4 or 5, right? So that's still something that you can say, okay, this is our track record. But under the new owners, it's not been that track record. It's been P8 max, like that's been our average position. And that's not good,
Yeah.
And when you look at that, and then you look at the fact that we haven't won anything except for the Conference League. We've made it to a couple of finals, which we've lost. But there's no Europe. I think we talked about this somewhere earlier where, there was a study which basically said Samsung gained so much goodwill from being Chelsea sponsors because Chelsea were winning everywhere and there was so much positive association with that, right? That's
why I buy Samsung only, man.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
But
bring back the winning factor, man.
Drogba,
the winning feeling. Yeah, I know.
hitting his chest. but that sort of stuff is not there with this current version of the club. So you take 60 million off the table and you say, okay, a club, say there's a potential sponsor who's willing to give you 30 million. You've said no to 30 million for 4 seasons now, which could have been 120 million. And you've got maybe these bit part deals with Damac and IFS and was there this third one? But whatever. Yeah. These bit part deals, I don't even remember who it was.
But that's the thing. That's exactly the point.
Yeah.
Like you're supposed to remember them because
you have
these sponsorships for a reason, right? But they're there for a couple of months and they're gone.
Yeah, and they're gone, right? So you've done these bit part deals where you've maybe, if you're lucky, you've made 50 million, but you've made 50 million where you could have had 120. Like that's simple math. Like that would have helped us so much. And we're going into season 4 now. Like, this will be the 4th season, right? 22, 23, 3 to 4, 45, 5 to 6. No, so 6 to 7 is our 5th season we're going into. 4 seasons are done. And we still don't have a shirt sponsor.
A consistent one.
One, period. Like one to start the season with. We don't have we should be...
Yeah, it's outrageous that we've actually haven't started the season under these guys with
and this
a sponsor of their choice.
Again, these are people who have said very clearly that the way Chelsea was run under the previous ownership, it was not well managed financially and commercially. So, like, what the fuck are you doing? You know what I mean? Yeah.
And like, it's all well and good to point this stuff out, but it has a detrimental impact on the books.
Yep.
And okay, whilst it's not our money and we don't care about it, maybe don't need to care about it so much, there's also, I don't want to be dramatic, but there's also the viability of the club, right? Because right now, I do think we got lucky. We got away with one in terms of self-reporting, made it look a lot better, right? But they could have easily justified slapping us with a points deduction, right? Considering, I think we benefited a significant amount with those under-the-table player agent.
Oh, yeah. No doubt. You're talking about Hazard, Willian, Eto'o, Ramirez.
Yeah.
Some of the
Ramirez,
clutch players.
Man.
Yeah,
Yo,
clutch players.
That chip over Valdez, and that's literally money right there.
Yeah, exactly.
So we've benefited from that. They could have justified a points deduction. But then there's now this thing of like, okay, we're past that, but in this current financial reporting period or season, we're showing massive losses again. So that's basically saying this is why it's so important to make sure that it's being talked about a lot, right? Because we're trying to illustrate just how far back we're lagging, and it actually does have an impact on the books. Today they decide it's a £10 million fine. Tomorrow it could actually be a points deduction, and then you're talking about, can we get to 10th, right? If we're facing a 10, 13, whatever point deduction at the start of the season.
Yeah.
So it is actually very important to understand like the gravitas of the situation if they're not able to turn things around, at least to stop the bleeding, right? Because if you're losing this much, I don't know how much they're actually losing in cash flow, but it doesn't seem like that's the problem. The main problem is at least do enough to satisfy PSR criteria. So that would involve bringing on a front of shirt sponsor.
Yeah. Fix the stadium up.
Fix the stadium.
Decide what you're doing with the stadium at least.
Yeah. And like, I don't know where else they go, because the gap is starting to get really, really big also to the competition. So there's lagging behind internally, like our own expectations and with the league's regulations, UEFA's regulations. But look at your competition, right? Spurs just blew a ridiculous amount of money this season.
Yeah.
Because they've been steadily accruing a lot of revenue and income over the years.
There's also a huge injection.
But you have to be able to justify the injection on your books. And these guys probably can't justify more injection the way it's being run. So the reason I say that, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. The equity part of the business I think it's been paid up for by Clear Lake and Todd Bowley's 60-40. But this whole future commitment to spending and investing 1.7 billion in the club, that's being funded in a very, very expensive way. So so I'm just going to look at my notes. I don't want to get this wrong.
Are you talking about the Aries? Okay, yeah. I'm glad you did this. Yeah.
So I mean, again, this goes back to the point we're trying to make about financial mismanagement. The decision to operate the player trading model, or there's no other word for it. I'm trying to be nice, but I shouldn't. It's just player trading model. Maybe it's driven by this commitment to spending, but also, right, we've shown the gaps that Chelsea are facing, that they need to close with their competitors in terms of commercialization of the brand, front of shirt, stadium. Stadium's a big one that leaves us far behind. They have to catch up to it in other ways, and flipping players, crude way of saying it, but flipping assets is the next best way to do it. Right? But unfortunately, they're not very good at it, right? Because the players they're trying to flip don't even play, or they're not playing in the right place, or whatever it is. Their form dips after they invest in the asset. Or they just from the start don't pick the right player to begin with.
Yeah.
So basically, to fund all of this player trading, right, they've taken on loans. One loan, which I think is the more sizable one at around like 800 million pounds. I'll need to find it somewhere here, maybe later. But that essentially, the rate that's being charged against that is around 7.5% interest, which is just constantly accruing when they don't pay it off, right? So that's automatically like X million pounds towards expenses on interest, right? The other loan, which is around 500 to 600 million pounds, so you can add those together, that's around 1.3, 1.4 billion. That's being done at a more expensive rate of around, maybe at today's, it's around 11%.
Wow, okay.
Which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And the reason, I would take a guess as to the reason why it's so expensive is because that's an unsecured loan.
Okay.
It's probably against some sort of personal guarantees that Todd Bowley or Iqbali have signed. Whereas the slightly larger loan, which is slightly cheaper, right, that's being done at like a consortium level, at a consolidated level, where they're leveraging some of the assets at the club. And that's a little bit more normal, let's say. Even in normal business, if you're not talking about private equity, right? To be able to inject more cash flow into the business, and all that, you take on some leverage and it's fine. But the unsecured stuff is where we're going from normal to that's quite risky considering the gaps that we just mentioned. So I've just found it here. It's 600 million pounds taken on by 22 Holdco, which you can probably explain who that is. But that is at around 11.5%. And it's totally unsecured. So That for me, when I was doing the research for this, is a red flag.
But which is the one that is with Aries that, like recently came out that...
So Aries might be the entity that's given 22 Holdco this loan.
Yeah, but is this the one that...
Because this is the one that interest capitalizes into principal and it keeps snowballing.
But is this...
And it's payment in kind. That's what you had mentioned.
So that means that if they don't make this, then they could lose their stake, their controlling stake.
Payment in kind, that's what I would understand.
Yeah.
Right? But obviously, again, it depends on many factors, right? Like the valuation of the club at that time, and there's probably some stopgaps for the ownership in terms of releasing so much equity at a certain point in time, like at a given point in time. But that's what I had understood when we researched this. So they're essentially leveraging equity, right?
And if they don't make that payment, then they basically all that equity goes to Aries, and they.
I don't want to get too specific on this because I don't know the parameters of that arrangement. But payment in kind means not necessarily paid back with like interest plus principal. It could be payment in another fashion. And your head, if you're thinking worst case scenario, your head would go to, oh, well, then you offload some of the equity. At the end of the day, I don't know what it would mean to have an Aries Capital as one of the minority shareholders of Chelsea. My thing is, it just seems to be getting worse, the situation, the financial situation, rather than there being a clear path and trajectory out of these debt structures and out of the losses that they're reporting in the club.
Got you. So if we look at that 250 million number that you talked about, we've said about 50 million could be solved by stadium.
And that's just match day
revenues is what I mean. Yeah.
You brought up off the pod. You brought up a very good point of we haven't even thought about how many millions you could bring in
from ancillary stuff happening around. But just match day.
Sponsors.
Yeah.
Big sponsors will look at your stadium also.
That's
right?
true. Yeah.
What can I put on at the stadium for my clients, or how can I attract big crowds? It depends who your sponsor is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But your stadium is also an asset in that negotiation.
So you've got match day revenues 50 million. That's discount the stadium. You've got we said front of shirt another.
Say 40.
Say 40.
Be conservative. Right. Yeah.
The 90 there.
Yeah, you're already down, right?
You're already down. Yeah. And then, of course, player trading.
160 million instead of 250.
Yeah.
And we're aiming to at least be under 105 in one season.
The funny thing is, this season we actually made 100. We've made 160 million in sales so far, right? But like when you're talking,
when you say this season, brand new season,
this window. So,
welcome to season 3, guys.
Yeah. No, so it's not a great picture, and I mean, of course, then you have I think the last bit of and I think this is probably the biggest chunk of it is the transfers and who's in charge of that and how that's been going. So what are your views on that? Because the structure is pretty
So I hope that we've shed some light on perhaps why they have to opt for a player trading model. Firstly, I'll just summarize. It's a commitment to spending X amount, 1.7 billion, investing it in the club. I think it's manifesting in this sort of player trading approach, but they also have to. You have to spend money to make money. I don't want to sound like too American when I say that, but they have to buy players so that they can sell them on for higher valuations. And we pointed this out in season 1. Yeah. When we were like, what's going on? Why are they buying so many players? Why do we have 40 players at preseason training? If those players aren't playing, they're not developing. Therefore, you can't sell them on for more than what you bought them, right? Now, I think the amortization of these things, like the way their clubs are allowed to treat player purchase and all that, does make it a little easier, because if they buy a João Felix for, I don't know how much we bought him for, right? Maybe let's say like 35 million, something like that, and they average that out. They spread that cost out for 5 years, which is now the cap officially on the books by PSR.
Yeah.
But then 2 years in, they've depreciated what would that be? Like £7 million each year. So that's £14 million. They then sell him on for 40 million to is it Al Hilal, right?
Yeah, he's 44.5.
44.5. I just chose 40 because I want to make the math easy for myself, but you're making it more difficult. So let's say 45.
Sold for
if you buy somebody, João Felix, for 35, he plays for you for 2 seasons. His book valuation is 35 minus 14, which is 21, right? And you sell him for 45, they can then report a profit of 24
exactly
million pounds.
Yeah.
So the amortization does make this a very attractive way to do it. If they're all João Felixes, where there's an innate talent in the player and they will grace the pitch enough times to be in the shop window. That's not happened. So, and part of the reason it's not happened is because they bought so many, and they're probably relying on, by this point, having 3 sister clubs as opposed to just Strasbourg.
Yeah.
Where they could just flood, Portugal, the French, maybe the German or Belgian, wherever it is, league with Blueco players, and put them in the shop window in these leagues, and then they get moves to those leagues or higher divisions or wherever it is, But it's not panned out that way. So it's high time that they change. They should have changed yesterday, like 2 seasons ago, when they realized, firstly, beyond Strasbourg, they have not made any progress.
Yeah.
But secondly, their approach is just leaving them with a lot of dead wood. Very long answer to your question, but I think you should, say how you really feel. Maybe also give us a breakdown of who's actually making the finance decisions, and then who's actually doing the sort of recruitment side of things. Who's responsible for those things?
Yeah. So we have, let's leave aside the board. We have 5 people in the sporting director's positions, right? So we have Paul Winstanley, who's been getting a lot of flack, the guy who was behind Garnacho, right? Lawrence Stewart. You have Joe Shields, the whole Kinetic Academy conspiracy you asked me about. And
the leader of the cult.
Yeah. And then you've got Sam Jewell and you've got Dave Fallows.
Okay,
they're official positions, and I'm going to read this out. So Paul Winstanley and Lawrence Stewart are co-sporting directors. They oversee all squad building, contract negotiations, and player sales. It's probably the go-to people.
Yeah.
Joe Shields, your director of professional football and scouting, focus on talent ID. You've got Sam Jewell, who's leading global recruitment, and Dave Fallows, who's leading football development, scouting, data, loans, and player pathways. So these are your 5 guys. Five guys.
Again, we're looking for sponsorships. So,
So, and then Iqbali and Boli are overseeing all of this, right? So these are the guys who have been behind the player identification. It's why, when we talked about are we lowballing for Xhaka intentionally, and are we, making wilder offers for certain players intentionally? It's these guys behind it, right?
Yeah.
You talk about Joe Shields and the whole Man City Academy links, and the fact that we have Lavia, Cole Palmer, now we have Morgan Rogers, Tosin, they've all come through that academy, and then you have the Kinetic Academy, the whole coaching and all of that. These are the guys behind that. So far they've been in charge of over we're looking at about 1.35 and 1.4 billion pounds spent so far on incomings, and player sales about 500 million. So you're lagging considerably.
And it's safe to say then, whatever we've borrowed, right, from external creditors, is gone straight into the transfer. Yeah,
because
kitty.
There's no other areas of revenue or areas of putting. Of course, you have certain payouts that they would not have imagined they'd be doing, which is bad coaching decisions. So the fact that you've had to let Maresca go, you've had
it
to...
starts with like Graham Potter.
I was just going to say Potter.
That was the big one, right? Because
Yeah.
they also paid money to take him and his team out of Brighton.
Correct.
So
that then Rosinia, there was probably a break clause, but all of these, that's all revenue, that's all money that they've been spending, really. So all in all, like these 5 guys, shout out to Burgers, haven't really, like, it seems like it's too many cooks, right? I mean, if you just look at it on the face of it,
like, since we're talking finance, right? Why
they're cooking the books?
No. He said that. So I don't want any case, but if there's a lawsuit, it's coming for you.
Nah, it's just a joke.
There's 5 of them when there only needs to be 2. Because I do think you need to have somebody who really understands football players and, has a view on development and, where to loan them, where they're going to get time, and how they would fit in a current system or in the academy or whatever it is. And you need one person who is going to be your businessman, like the negotiator, potentially also scouring the market for deals, right? Because like we said, maybe we can't avoid the player trading model. We just have to be better at it.
At it, exactly,
right?
yeah.
So, but if I'm looking at it, we're talking finance, fire 3 guys. But then you'll only have 2 guys, and then we can't do 5 guys.
I mean, the other way I look at it is also the multi-club model, right? Like, why has there been no progress? Why was Strasbourg the first and only one so far? Like, there was some links in Portugal, if I remember correctly, but nothing materialized there. So what's happening?
But they have very good relations with, like, Sporting Lisbon, for instance, right? So it's the next best thing. But like you say, the idea is to then you're building up a pool of talent.
Yeah.
And you're hoping to kind of farm them out wherever, so everybody gets game time. I have no idea where this model is actually going. One would think it's because you can't just do whatever you want and get away with it, right? Because if you're buying up teams in different leagues, it technically is affecting the quality of competition in Europe, right? What I'm alluding to is there is probably pushback from UEFA on this, right?
Yeah, but I mean, UEFA has that rule that if there are clubs part of a multi-club structure, they can't be playing in the same European league. That is already there.
But that could be a factor. I mean, Strasbourg were closer to being in the Champions League than Chelsea were this season. And imagine what would happen if both actually hit the Champions League qualification spots.
Yeah.
What would happen? So I have a feeling this is all coming into it now, right? There's a lot of, situations where these guys are trying to lead the way because they had the advantage of coming in from different sports, from different leagues, and bringing their expertise in. Like, for instance, amortizing player contracts for 8 years. But tomorrow, the league and the governing bodies adapt to what they're trying to do. And so your advantage that you've gained was for all of one season.
Yeah.
So I think the regulation is catching up, and that's probably making it more difficult for them to add to the model. But that's just my opinion. I actually have nothing to base that on beyond the rules coming in, and being amplified about these multi-club models and owners having stakes in multiple.
But there's even the rule which is obviously we talked about on the last pod with the Villa transfers, right? The consecutive transfers in the same window between clubs have to be 45 days apart. Otherwise, the profit cannot be cannot be.
This is all
recorded.
This is all the governing bodies getting wise.
Exactly.
Right?
I was going to say
and there's no need for regulation to be in place unless they feel that somebody is pushing the boundaries.
Yeah.
Right?
Correct.
Of fair play and competition. Of course, how fair and how corrupt UEFA is and the FA is.
And FIFA.
Yeah. I'm not going to ever say that we're going to do that kind of pod because we want to stay alive. But, I think there's more external management to be done for them to add to the model ultimately.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, and I think that's a key point to this player trading approach. If we're seeing signs that, okay, they're now backing a manager, calling him manager, going for his signings, and it's going to be less of a flip here, like, wheel and deal there, it's partially a signal that, okay, the original approach is not working in terms of the how much turnover they want to do and how much they can achieve. So.
I think the Welbeck and Henderson signings are also an indication of that. Like, it's the experience we've been talking about, and I think, for this window at least, I think Pep Chavaria is finally getting done. Looks like it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And there are still some rumblings that are not yet coming from verified sources, but I wouldn't be surprised if this picked up and actually happened, where Diogo Costa, like you called, might happen. And if we get those two over the line, Chavaria at least is
I think done.
we would.
Really done. He hasn't.
My point is, we need the jersey, but like, if we even if we didn't get Diogo Costa, but if we got Diogo Costa, I think then we're set. Like, I don't think anything else needs to be done except outgoings, and then for a couple of and then a couple of seasons, like if the squad like gels, I think we're really solid then. Yeah.
We'll come on to predictions and expectations very soon.
Yeah.
But going back to what you said, let's say we did actually manage to get our transfer business done relatively early, considering there was a World Cup, right? And we're done. The amount of outgoings that need to happen is ridiculous. And actually, we've Barco is coming in, it's confirmed, right? Then you've got Henderson. Not that they're caring about how many minutes Henderson will get, right? But you've brought in Barco. You haven't actually offloaded anybody except for Santos, right?
Esugo probably goes out on loan, I think.
But then Esugo is different to Barco and Fernandes. And then you've spent 117 million pounds on Rodgers.
It looks like that Enzo Fernandez sale has to happen now.
It has to.
Yeah.
Because again, we've gone through the numbers.
Yeah.
Right? We need, either you sell a just high volume number of players, or you throw in a couple of large transactions, and that takes the pressure off of what other fancy financial unfair play that they have to do on their books. But I'm trying to understand how they go from, in 2024 and 2020 to 2025, showing that much net loss to still surviving the PSR over the next 2 seasons, right? Because there has to be
sales.
some offsetting.
I think we're looking at least 4 sales happening in the range of, if Enzo goes through for 120 million, that's a huge chunk.
Yeah.
But at least 4 sales of around 50 to 60 each happening before the end of the window is my prediction.
Who's carrying 50 to 60 million pound valuation? It's usually players that we wouldn't mind keeping.
Pedro Neto.
Yeah.
Nicholas Jackson.
And Gusto.
Yeah. And maybe Enzo Fernandez. Those are the 4.
I actually, honestly, now that we've done the finance pod, I actually wouldn't mind letting those go of those players,
because you've also got sufficient cover there. Delap might go for 30.
Okay.
25, 30. Disasi, Badiashile.
Yeah.
Tosin maybe. Tosin's a prime candidate for me to go. So all
he's
of these.
He's not going to go though.
But okay, fine. Suppose he doesn't go. Disasi, Badiashile, Delap also going at 30 million average, or 25 to 30 million. It's still.
Is this how you're planning to do the 600 million in sales, and then suddenly we're rosy?
Yeah, it could happen.
Man. Anyway,
if you put valuations to all the players that we think we can sell, you can easily say we could get 300 to 400 million. Easy,
but they actually have to go.
They have to go, of course. I get that, but.
How you're Chavaria needs to sign and do the jersey. I'm like, these guys need to
do the other jersey.
Do the other one. So that I know the cash is in the bank.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But
yeah, go on.
I was going to say, to wrap this up.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Where do you think, without getting into detailed expectations, which we're going to do after we obviously have the match tomorrow and we see all of that, where do you think or what do you think needs to happen for us to be financially healthy within the next 2 seasons?
Dude, if we're talking the next 2 seasons,
Yeah.
then you can throw stadium out of the window.
Yeah, right.
Because it's not even a plausible suggestion.
Of course.
If we're talking plausible things.
Plausible suggestion, like stadium plans getting started would be something I could say in 2 years. That's what I mean. But like
let's say actually getting the site
right, yeah.
right sorted, and then sending your tender out to the contractors or whatever it is, the developers. That's later on, but at least sorting out where you're going to build this new thing or planning out the redevelopment. But I think it's too far-fetched, man. I don't think it's something they can really achieve even in 2 years. I just don't think it's possible. I think they really need, so externally they need to commercialize better, and it's funny because that was their whole proposition coming in. So get one of these, front of shirt sponsor. Even if you take a 10-20 million pound hit, at least start adding to your coffers, right? Sell off whatever dead wood you can, right? Again, I don't mind taking cut price deals on a lot of like Desassi's, Tosins, Badia Shields, whatever it is, but they will figure out their valuations themselves. And then once you see where you land, right, in terms of, let's say this is closer to 30 than 40, and instead of 300 or 350, you get 200, 250, you then have to make a very tough decision of, okay, do I need to offload a top talent? What I'm saying is, like, if you're talking about 2 seasons, which I would say is quite short term when you're talking about the finances and the health, you're probably still looking at doing, I don't want to say player trading, but balancing the books that way.
Yeah, but I also think like one thing that I would expect is better league finishes and at least getting the European matches in as well.
That's not really within the board's control. That's up to, they've appointed the right manager.
But it's about I mean it's just setting the expectations.
You back the manager.
Yeah.
But like if you're asking me, okay, what can I do off the pitch? It's a very they've backed themselves into a corner. That's the truth. Yeah. Like not sorting out any sort of stadium solution 3 years ago, right? Not having come in with an actual plan, and passing up on free money, going deep into, we must flip like 20 players per season or 30 players per season. These approaches were all they're just leaving them in a very, very deep hole to try and fix. So you got to start doing things the right way first, see where you land, and then, okay, what additional things do we need to do? If it keeps going the way it is, we will start getting heavier fines, point deductions. I don't even want to know what happens after that. But I'm not trying to be all doom and gloom. I'm just saying.
No, you're just being Sharon.
Yeah,
just being Sharon.
But they need to rectify what they're doing wrong before we start talking about, what do we do after that?
Yeah. You know? Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think, man, this is one that I think I know why we've put it off for so long.
Yeah, I know. It's heavy. It's heavy. Very heavy.
Yeah. But on that note, training session. Heading there.
Time to put some work in.
And we'll catch you on the next one with our thoughts after the game.
Yeah.